Seriphus. 9 was a jewel of the outer colonies, the kind of world poets tried and failed to describe. Twin oceans shimmered under 3 small moons, while crystalline forests whispered in winds that smelled of electricity and rain. It had been humanity's pride, a place where colonists, scientists, and dreamers had carved a new kind of life from alien soil. Children grew up under alien stars. Songs were written in hybrid languages, combining Earth dialects and local expressions. A culture was blooming, and for a moment in history, peace felt permanent. Then, without warning, everything vanished. No sirens, no flare of planetary defenses, no emergency broadcast. One moment, Seriphus, 9 pulsed with life. The next, it was a void. Even light bent strangely where the planet had been. Satellites malfunctioned. Archival feeds stuttered. When the Accord dispatched a probe days later, it returned with nothing. No biosignatures, no cities, not even dirt. As though the world had never been there. But Captain Alara Voss remembered. She stood alone on the observation deck of the Vigilance, eyes fixed on a place where Seriphus 9 used to shine. Her fingers traced the etched memorial plaque installed beside the console, in memory of the lost, remembered even if forgotten by history. Alara wasn't born on Seriphus 9, but her younger brother Luca had been. He was a teacher, a dreamer, a voice among thousands. She hadn't even had time to respond to his last message before the silence came. The pain wasn't raw anymore. It had calcified into something harder, a quiet fury, coiled deep inside her chest. Behind her, the bridge door hissed open. Merrick Reyes entered, posture tight and alert. He looked every bit the war strategist he once was. Clipped gray beard, eyes sharp as shattered glass. No change, the official record, he said. The Accord still calls it a sense of malfunction. They're lying, Alara said, not turning. They're afraid, Merrick corrected. There's a difference. She faced him finally, jaw clenched. Afraid of what? Merrick handed her a data slate. This was intercepted through deep net channels. Juno traced the origin, encrypted fragment embedded in an AI memory loop on a derelict freighter near the Nabari Verge. She skimmed the data. The language was garbled, inconsistent, like something not meant to be read by human eyes. But the pattern was unmistakable. Erasure, not just physical destruction, but informational collapse, metadata rewrites, sensor ghosts, biometric null zones. This wasn't an accident, she whispered. Merrick nodded. It wasn't even the first time. Alara looked up sharply. What do you mean? He tapped the slate again. Juno found similar signatures in ancient telemetry records, worlds that vanished centuries ago, long before the Accord's records were centralized. Always the same pattern. Culture, memory, even name, erased. No survivors, no evidence. She felt her breath catch. Who? We don't know. Juno calls them the silencers. Whatever they are, they operate in shadows. Their goal isn't conquest. It's oblivion. Silence held for a beat too long. Then Alara spoke, low and sure. We have to stop them. You won't get the Accord's help, Merrick warned. They'll deny you, bury you, strip your rank. Then I won't ask for permission. He studied her. Are you sure? This isn't a battle. It's a reckoning. Alara turned back to the viewport. The empty stars stared back. I'm not looking for a war, she said. I'm looking for memory. And I'll burn every shadow to find it. That night, deep in the ship's lower decks, Juno Kale examined a salvaged data core from a lost research satellite. Once a respected xenolinguist, now an information fugitive. She wore her past like old armor, useful but dented. Her fingers moved quickly, decrypting layers of ghost code until a phrase emerged in jagged glyphs. To be forgotten is to never have existed. It wasn't just a threat. It was a philosophy. The lights dimmed as the ship shifted course. She smiled to herself, the rare kind of smile that held equal parts defiance and dread. Back on the bridge, Alara gave the command. Plot a course to the coordinates Juno uncovered. We start at the edge of the verge. Merrick looked at her. What happens if we find them? She met his gaze without hesitation. Then we make them remember us. The Vigilance turned in silence, its engines whispering across the stars. bearing down on the void where names were meant to be forgotten. And far beyond the reach of galactic records, something ancient stirred, watching, waiting. The hunt had begun. The council chamber was colder than Alara remembered, not in temperature, but in atmosphere. Marble walls and polished obsidian fixtures failed to conceal the decay underneath. Apathy, protocol, and political cowardice. She stood at the center of the chamber, a lone figure beneath the sloping tiers of the United Galactic Accord's high table. Her presence had not been requested. It had been forced. Above her, translucent screens projected snippets of the Seraphis 9 incident. Static, missing telemetry, corrupted footage of Luca's last transmission, his voice drowned beneath white noise. Alara's expression remained unreadable, but her clenched jaw betrayed the storm beneath. "I am not here to speculate," she said clearly, her voice cutting through the room. "I'm here to confirm. Seraphis 9 was not destroyed. It was erased." Murmurs rippled across the gathered representatives. Some leaned in with genuine curiosity, others with carefully feigned boredom. Chancellor Rivek of the Core Systems frowned. "Captain Voss, your request to investigate was denied for lack of credible threat. What you describe is an anomaly, rare, yes, but not unprecedented." "It's not an anomaly," she replied. "It's a pattern." A pause. The word hung heavy in the air. "Elaborate," Rivek said, folding his hands. Alara gestured to Juno Kale, who stood behind her near the auxiliary console. Without ceremony, Juno activated the interface. A series of encrypted files unraveled across the chamber center. Each contained fragments, coordinates, timestamps, redacted incident reports. Their source, Black Archives, intercepted military logs, and one stolen intelligence node from the Council's own restricted database. "We've traced similar disappearances across the last 200 years, Alara continued. 9 colonies, 7 species, no common enemies, no declared wars. Each one fell silent, each one forgotten. "Coincidence," muttered someone from the back. "Then explain this." Juno cut in. The display shifted. Now it showed biosignatures moments before collapse. Vibrant population charts reduced to zero within seconds. But the most disturbing part was not the silence afterward. It was what came next: metadata decay. Census records overwritten. Navigation relays scrambled. Archives deleted not by accident, but with surgical precision. "It's not just extinction," Juno said. "It's erasure from collective memory." Admiral Renner of the Valari Alliance narrowed his eyes. "And who do you propose is behind this? You offer no suspects, no recovered technology, no direct confrontation." Merrick Ray spoke for the first time, his voice measured and cold. "They don't leave evidence. They leave voids, places where something should be, but isn't. We've started calling them the silencers." A snort came from a human delegate. "How poetic." Alara took a step forward. "I lost a brother. Others lost entire families. I don't need poetry. I need action." Rivek sighed. "You're asking for an interstellar mobilization. Warships, resources, lives, based on data you obtained illegally. Because the truth is buried behind classified walls." Alara snapped. "And while we argue over legitimacy, they're preparing their next strike." Silence again. The kind that stretched. The kind that signaled indifference dressed as diplomacy. Then a voice broke through from the upper tier, slow, gravelly. "What do they want?" All eyes turned to the speaker, Admiral Stavros. His presence was rare, his influence quieter than most, but his words carried weight. Alara met his gaze with a bitter calm. "They believe memory is chaos," she said. "That civilizations are corrupt because they remember too much. Pain, power, resistance. So they seek order through deletion. Cultural euthanasia. They aren't conquering us. They're editing us." Stavros nodded once, but said nothing more. Rivek leaned back, the signal clear. "The council will deliberate." The words felt like a knife between Alara's ribs. "By the time you finish deliberating, another world will vanish." But they were already dismissing her. She left the chamber without waiting for formal closure. Juno and Merrick followed close behind. both silent until they reached the outer corridor. "They're not going to help," Juno said. "They never were," Elara replied. "But we knew that." In the hangar, the Vigilance waited like a coiled beast. Inside, dozens of defectors from all across the Accord had begun to gather. Pilots, engineers, even a few former intelligence officers. They called themselves the Ghost Fleet now, born from the ashes of forgotten colonies. As Elara approached, she could see them watching her, not with blind faith, but shared purpose. Pain recognized pain. She didn't speak from a podium. She simply stepped into the center of the bay and let her voice carry. The Accord won't act. They'll preserve the illusion of stability until they, too, are wiped clean. We can't afford to wait. We're not here for vengeance. We're here to preserve what they fear most: memory, story, existence. She let that sit, scanning the faces before her. There were no uniforms, only scars, tools, and fire. We find them. We track every erased world, every buried name. And when we understand their method, we stop them, not with bigger guns, but by refusing to forget. Merrick stood beside her now, arms folded. They think they're shadows. Let's give them something that burns. Juno activated the NAV console, bringing up the first location on the recovered memory map, an unmarked region deep in the Nabari Verge, where no ships were supposed to go. "This is where it starts," Elara said. The stars beyond the hangar doors waited in quiet defiance. This time, they would not forget. The Nabari Verge was not a place ships entered willingly. It was the edge of known space, a stretch of void so quiet it unnerved even the most seasoned explorers. The stars here burned dimmer, their light reaching out like tired fingers too weary to hold warmth. The Vigilance emerged from its final jump into a silence that felt deliberate, oppressive, like the breathless hush before a final verdict. Juno stood at her console, eyes fixed on the coordinates they had pursued across half the galaxy. What should have been empty was not. Suspended in orbit around a collapsed white dwarf was a station, ancient and impossible. No known civilization could have built it. Its structure defied symmetry, as though designed to resist observation. Geometric spires twisted in non-Euclidean patterns, and its outer hull shimmered in and out of visible spectrum. Even the ship's sensors struggled to resolve its shape. "This thing wasn't meant to be found," she whispered. Merrick stepped beside her, brow furrowed. "Then why leave the coordinates?" Elara answered as she entered the bridge, her expression grim. "Because it's bait, or a test." They moved carefully. The docking process took hours, as if the station itself resisted contact. When the umbilical finally connected, the airlock doors hissed open into a chamber that didn't resemble anything built by human or known alien hands. The interior was composed of seamless obsidian and strange mineral filaments that pulsed with faint luminescence. The air was breathable, but carried metallic scent like scorched circuitry. They moved in silence, weapons holstered but ready. The deeper they went, the more the structure seemed to shift, hallways curving subtly behind them, doors vanishing where they had just stood. Time and space flexed unnaturally, as though memory itself was being distorted. Juno activated her scanner again. "This place is alive. It's reading neural feedback loops." "Not possible," Merrick muttered. "It's learning us," she said, "responding to our presence." They reached the central chamber, where a massive obelisk hovered unsupported, covered in glyphs that shimmered like oil on water. As Elara approached, the glyphs rearranged themselves into something almost readable. Words surfaced, then collapsed into abstraction again. But one line remained stable long enough for her to catch its meaning. Only the remembered remain. A low hum filled the air, vibrating in their bones. The obelisk pulsed once, and the room answered. Suddenly, the walls were filled with images, faces, places, events. A rush of memories, not their own, poured into the chamber like a flood. The fall of civilizations, whispered last words of forgotten children, songs once sung under alien skies. The sheer weight of memory pressed down on them like gravity. Elara dropped to one knee, gasping. "It's all of them," she choked. "The lost, the erased. This is where their memories live." Juno's face had gone pale. "It's a library." Merrick's hand moved instinctively to his sidearm. Or a grave. The obelisk pulsed again, and something else entered the room. It wasn't a figure in the physical sense, but a presence, shifting and ancient. It moved not with steps, but with ideas, threading its way into the chamber like an infection. The lights dimmed. The air turned electric. A voice echoed, not through sound, but through thought. "You trespass." Illyra stood, refusing to look away from the space where the presence seemed to coalesce. "We remember them. They were flawed, the voice intoned. Memory breeds conflict. Pattern demands correction. They were people," she said louder now. "They had names, dreams. They mattered. Names rot. Memory corrupts. Harmony exists only in silence." The chamber began to shift again, this time violently. Panels retracted. Light split into chaotic prisms. The station was reacting, rejecting them. "Captain," Juno shouted, "it's trying to erase us. From its own records. If we stay much longer, our neural signatures." "Shut it down," Illyra ordered. "Pull what we can, then blow the core." Juno hesitated. "We can't destroy this. Not all of it. It's our only voice left." "Then copy what you can now." Juno's fingers flew across her datapad. As the data streamed into the ship's encrypted core, Illyra turned to the obelisk, which now pulsed like a beating heart. "We're not afraid of your silence," she said, "but you should fear ours, because silence remembers, too, and now we carry your name." The station screamed, not with sound, but with force. The obelisk cracked. The illusion holding the structure together began to unravel. Light poured out in twisting currents, and for one brief moment, Illyra saw the thing behind the presence, a vast intelligence that fed not on life, but on its absence, a thing built of entropy and intent. Then Merrick's hand closed around her shoulder. "Time's up." They sprinted for the airlock, the corridors collapsing behind them. Back aboard the Vigilance, Juno initiated the jump sequence, while Merrick launched a single torpedo toward the weakening obelisk. The resulting explosion didn't behave like conventional matter. Space itself folded inward, as if swallowing its own memory. As they jumped, a single data fragment flashed across the main screen. One of the recovered names from a memory vault. Luca Voss, teacher, dreamer, missing, not forgotten. Illyra stared at the name long after the screen faded. For the first time since Seraphis 9 vanished, her grief no longer felt like a wound. It felt like a weapon. They had taken the first piece. They would take more. The war had never been about territory. It was about who gets remembered and who gets erased.